Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Welcome, one and all, to the Touring Car Championship European Tour powered by VRRC. You are correct, this isn't Andy McEwan introducing you, as is the custom these days of VRRC. It's back to the old duo of myself, Jack Oliphant, and Dave Marshall. Dave, how the devil are you?
Yeah, well, I'm brilliant, thanks, Jack. And yeah, as you said, nice to be back in the old duo again. It's been a while, but pleasure to be with you, and hopefully it goes nice and smoothly tonight as well.
And that's absolutely the case, I'm sure. If the previous rounds have been anything to go by, we are, of course, going to the Red Bull Ring for round 5 of the Touring Car Championship. So it should be well on its... Well, the championship... In fact, no, sorry. It's round 4. My apologies. I missed a round and got it mixed up. There we go. But round 4 here at the Red Bull Ring. You had Monza last week. It was you and Andy taking us through that one, Dave. Apparently, it was a bit of a barnstormer.
Yeah, you know what? It proved for absolute fantastic race. The hybrid system, the long straights, it really was very, very dicey. Just cars constantly going for overtakes. But it all in all came down to strategy, and Jordan Brennan was back, who came in and, to be fair, just got the grip straight away with the car and basically absolutely wiped it on points. But it was a really strong round for the likes of Rich Hayden, and I tell you what, Elliot Dalton has really shown he's got some pace in the car as well. So not our top championship contenders, interesting enough, coming away with the top points. So it's mixing the championship up, but also might make it really interesting tonight as well for the championship, because the likes of Nicky Taylor, Joe Lask aren't quite at front running speed with the Success Ballast they've got from previous round.
Yeah, we'll go through that in a couple of minutes' time, of course, and the championship order, all those sort of good things. But it's lined up nicely, what we'll say. And we've got a couple of rounds until the next endurance event, haven't we, as well? So we're back to the sprint format tonight. 52 15-minute sessions coming up. There we go on your screen. It's the same story when we go to the Hockenheim ring in a week's time. And then, of course, at Spa, we're back to the 40-minute endurance race. Hopefully, I'll be back for that one. 10th of August, I hopefully won't need to learn how to pronounce that one, because I think I'm in Cornwall for the 10th of August for those 2 rounds. And then we finish off the season with a trip to Silverstone, back to old Blighty to Silverstone for one last couple of sprint races. A slightly elongated championship here at VRRC now. We're used to, obviously, the 6 rounds. Well, we've got 8 this time. How is the championship standing up? Well, Dave, you've already touched on it. It's getting a little bit tight, a little bit close at the top there, and you can talk us through it.
Yeah, so we have indeed, and as you pointed out as well, championship's slightly longer in an 8-round format, but what that is allowing is we have 1 drop round amongst the 8. Also, the endurance races hold double points, meaning that it's never the endurance race necessarily, that is always the one dropped. So as you can see, to the championship points, this is with the worst round dropped so far. So Scott Bugner, for instance, sat there in 4th place, but he did miss last round, and he's going to miss this round as well, because he's not here tonight. So what that does mean is anyone, the likes of Elliot, Rich, even the likes of Kyle, can really capitalise tonight, because they can then leapfrog Scott Bugner with an extra round worth of points. So a really good round for the likes of 5th to 8th, really to pull them points. And I'm really interested to see what Josh Martin does as well. Not the round he wanted last round out, but he's got some serious pace in that car. Just needs to get them results together, Jack.
Yeah, those 3 drivers, without spoiling too much, Carl Felvers, Rich Hayden and Josh Martin, are currently the top 3 in practice as well. So, yeah, that one tonight is certainly going to be very, very interesting. You actually have to look, where is Joel Lask in practice? Well, he's in 7th place at the moment. So, yeah, not ideal for him. You see Jordan Brennan in the top 10. He's not here tonight again, though. Jens Verhoeven, Reece Bell, he is here. Paul Zanetechi, all the way down to Stuart Vickers, who unfortunately won't be taking part tonight either. Full, pretty much. Apart from that, though, we have about 13 full cars. Right, what are they racing for? That is the question. First place prize, obviously, all the way down to 3rd. Trophies on offer here at the VRRC. Something physical you can put up. Start building your trophy cabinet now, because I'm sure the drivers will be itching to get them on display. I know I personally have trophies from previous and better years up in the house, ready for people to walk in. Bit of a conversation starter. And, of course, driver of the round as well. A bit of a pride thing for you. And that'll be picked between me and Dave Marshall and Tom O'Farrell, who's, of course, on the broadcast as ever. Right, Dave, we best go into the hot lap around the Red Bull Ring in one of these TCR cars. So why don't you take it away?
So towards the line here at Red Bull Ring in Austria for round 4 of the Virtual Reality Racing Club Touring Car Championship. Down to turn 1, down to 3rd gear, taking a lot of the apex and modulating that throttle nicely in to make sure we don't push that front end over that yellow curb on the outside. That will be track limits. Also, this straight here is going to play such a crucial role in the race. Using that hybrid system to draw alongside, expect to see some maybe times 3 cars alongside into turn 2 here. Trying to do exactly the same as turn 1, make sure we get that car turned and modulate the throttle in. Otherwise, you'll just spin up that front end and you won't get the pull up the hill and get the good run down towards turn 4 here. Now, make sure we get nice and far left, really hard on the brakes, catching quite a late apex and letting the corner open its way out, getting back right to make the track as short as we possibly can, and then down towards turn 6. Trail brake for as long as you dare, all the way in, and then starting to blend in that throttle and drive it all the way out to the right. Same again through turn 7 here, waiting for that exit, picking that point, there it is, it opens, and then modulate into that throttle. Now all the way up through turn 8 towards turn 9, for me, most difficult corner on the track to get consistently right. Down 2 gears grabbing a little bit of apex there, being very careful on throttle, not to push it on again. And then in the last corner, you can see how prone it was to trying to oversteer. Make sure you get the car nice and gripped up before you get on that power. And there is a lap of Red Bull Ring. Make sure you tune in to VRRC on Wednesday nights, and also give this video a like and subscribe.
Would you believe it? Dave Marshall was trying to argue that that last corner wasn't track limits. I don't think the FIA will have the complete backing of that one now there, Dave, but it was a good effort nonetheless. Right, this little battle, Tom has been keeping an eye on it whilst we've had that. That's definitely track limits in the background there. Talk us through why this is interesting with Andy Carroll in the middle here.
Yeah, so interesting enough, Red Bull Ring, for all it's quite a technical track, regard when to get on throttle, making sure you're carrying good corner speed, there's a lot of straight line performance to be gained from getting the slipstream. So at the moment you've got the likes of Taylor in behind Carroll, which you'd usually think Nicky's maybe got a few tenths on the likes of Andy Carroll up the road. But let's remember, Nicky Taylor has weight in his car, so will be significantly slower down the straight and have to brake sooner. So actually what Nicky's doing here is very, very smart indeed, holding on to the back of Carroll, and that's dragging his straight line speed up of a car that maybe doesn't have that straight line speed. There, look, you can see Carroll's pulled away, but because Nicky Taylor is close enough to get that slipstream, if Andy Carroll wasn't in front, that distance would have been bigger still. So Nicky Taylor here being very, very smart, and it'd be interesting if we look at the likes of Joel Lask and also Eric Axelson, who has a very, very similar weight to Nicky Taylor indeed, which we'll go through the weights very, very shortly. That, you can see what I mean, might give him the advantage when he puts this clean lap in.
Yeah, he's effectively trying to mitigate his disadvantage, isn't he, at the moment, Nicky Taylor. Quite smart driving, to be honest. Even if he is getting slightly held up, like now, he's got a fantastic run, hasn't he, going into the penultimate corner, and he has to hit the brakes slightly early. In fact, he might have hit Andy Carroll out of the way there, because there did seem to be a lot of overspeed Andy Carroll sent through there, and, well, I couldn't hear it through my headphones, but there may have been a little bit of a nudge. Tom O'Farrell's just come in on the Discord as well. It's quite interesting that Nicky is using Andy Carroll and not one of his HFT teammates. You'd have thought that they would have discussed that before the race, before qualifying, and maybe came up with a little bit of a plan with the likes of Carl Felbus, who's currently on pole position. I'm not letting him say that he doesn't enjoy front-wheel drive anymore, Dave, because that myth has been quashed now, hasn't it?
Yeah, he definitely can't use that as an excuse for either not doing as well as what he would like to do, or he's not getting on with the car. At the end of the day, Kyle Felbus now is 100% fast in the front wheel drive, and a drive to be reckoned with. And you know what? When a driver's pulling in results like this currently, pole in qualifying, you cannot really say you're not enjoying it.
No, exactly, and it's a bit of a testament to the work he's put in and the perseverance he's put in as well, because there are a lot of drivers, myself included, that if there's a front-wheel drive championship, I just think, no, I'll wait until it's rear-wheel drive again. But Kyle and a number of other drivers decided, you know what, I'm going to push on, I'm going to try my best, I'm going to actually learn how to drive a front-wheel drive car. And when you're young and when you're inexperienced in the sim racing world, you need to make sure that you are gathering all the information you can and trying to get better in every discipline.
Yeah, and you know what, actually, chat, it's quite an interesting way of looking at it, because from my experience, front-wheel drive tends to be the championship people go for, because especially at the early laps, you know what contact can be like. Front-wheel drive is a lot more forgiving. So, you know, if you get a tap from the back, normally you can just plant your foot and it'll pull the back end back through and, you know, follow the front end. Rear-wheel drive, you get a tap, and there's quite a lot more driver control comes into it, and you've got to really be on it regarding throttle input and how hard you push on that early lap. So, interesting enough, you're saying rear-wheel drive, but I know you're a rear-wheel drive man, but also Kyle Felbus, his background in drifting, hence why he probably does struggle with the throttle input and the front-wheel drive.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's not that it's not that I hate every front-wheel drive out there. It's not the case at all. I think it just doesn't make sense in my head when I'm trying to control a car going quickly. I just can't get my head around it. And to be fair, unlike a lot of these guys, I haven't put enough time and effort to really get to grips with it in the first place. I just started talking instead of actually learning how to do it. So here we are at the end of the day. 2.5 minutes left. Carl Felbus still on pole position. Eric Axelson, but Joel Lask has just put in a purple Sector 1. Joel Lask is currently in 3rd place. His best lap is a 1:35.664. About a 10th potentially away from Carl Felvers and that pole time. Just missing the apex a little bit there as I glance back over to my screen. Maybe I just came back to it late. Maybe he's got something up his sleeve that I'm not 100% sure. But Joel will know that he's on for a flyer here, Dave. The pressure starts to ramp up as they go through the technical section.
Yeah, and you know what? Setting these hot laps that I do, what you show at the start of the stream here, this, for whatever reason, was the track that I actually had to try and do quite a few times to get a clean lap together. It doesn't feel like that technical of a track, but for some reason, just the pressure in these last 2 corners of hooking that lap up, making sure you run as much track as you can, as you see, all the way out to them red and white curbings, keeping one wheel on them at all times, keeping dry, but also into that last corner, there's an awful bounce as you turn into the right that really unsettles the car, and your lap can be undone there. The same as turn 1 through here. So Joel going through there, if you don't hook up a good turn 1, you can lose 2/10 by the time you get to turn 2. So it's one of them laps, for some reason, for me, it took quite a few laps to settle into the session. So actually, in qualifying trim, I might have been tempted to go out mediums to get more laps under my belt rather than going out on softs.
That's what I always would have done, to be honest. I say at every qualifying session, I'm not one of these aliens like you, and like Jordan Brennan and the others, that can just go out there, put in a warm-up lap, put in a flying lap, come back in, change the tyres. I need to get into a rhythm, especially somewhere like the Red Bull Ring. And, I mean, you mentioned that final corner. A great example is the F1 of the weekend, wasn't it? Or a couple of weekends ago with George Russell in qualifying. Just absolutely stacked it. A very talented driver, but that sort of elevation change can really undo a car and undo even the best drivers out there. So, yeah, not easy at all. Talk us through very quickly about the track limits, because to the untrained eye, to the people who don't know the regulations that ran by VRRC, these do look like they are abusing the track limits.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, essentially, it's basically using the in-game software to determine the track limits, to which we've set as long as one tyre is still within regulation, the lap is legal, and the lap on Red Bull Ring is determined by the red and white curbing. So as long as you've got one wheel still on that red and white curbing there, not the white line inside it, as long as you keep one wheel, so that there is very out there and too far off track limits by Andy Carroll, but as long as you can go through here and make sure you keep one wheel on that red and white curb, your lap will be legal. So that is essentially the top and bottom of it, really. It's very, very simple, and all the drivers are under exactly the same scenario as well, trying to push as much of the track they possibly can, but actually sometimes going that far off track, you find the bumps and the undulations that you wouldn't necessarily normally find. So Josh Martin's line there for me was actually about spot on. He was inside of the big red sausage curb, and it means when you try and come back across it, it doesn't throw the car up and over it. So needless to say, for me, Josh Martin on a good line there. If you're too far left on that corner, it is really hard to get back on the track without getting a bounce and losing time through that last corner. So watch for that during the race as well.
Very interesting there. Also, something that's very interesting is we have a new pole sitter, and Carl Felvers and Eric Axelson don't have any time to apply. They've taken the checkered flag, and that means Joel Lask is pretty much safe on the top of the order. Joel Lask coming in right at the end there. His penultimate lap may well be his final lap. It's potentially penultimate lap, a 1:35.472, half a tenth quicker than Carl Felvers for the time being. So Joel Lask really making a statement there. He wasn't that quick in practice. He really wasn't. But he is the championship leader for a reason, and he's on pole position. Carl Felvers in second, now Axelson in third at the moment. Nicky Taylor, Elliot Dalton, Josh Martin, Andy Carroll, Paul Zanetechi, Rich Hayden, and Will Hughes. Mark Hughes, my apologies, rounding out the top 10. Reese Bell is the only driver that isn't just finished just yet, but he doesn't look like he's going any quicker. So we're going to go and jump to a very quick advert before we have a chat to our pole sitter.
So what a fantastic lap that was by Joe Last, putting it on pole, and we go straight down to the interview room with the man himself. Joe, what a lap you put in there, very, very last minute into the session. I imagine the soft tyres must have been just about on the edge there, but fantastic under the pressure.
Yeah, a couple of difficult laps there trying to put a time in. I was much quicker in practice, which is a frustrating thing, but he was just trying to hook it up. Yeah, just got lucky right at the end there and managed to just find a little bit of time in the last sector.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Jack about this before. It seems like there's a lot of people struggling on the grid to match the lap times that they were also doing in practice. I was saying when I did my hot lap, for whatever reason, this was one of them tracks. It was actually hard to replicate a fast lap. Are you finding the same sort of thing compared to the tracks in the season?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like in practice, I was doing 35.1 instead of 35.4, but you're either 4 or 5 tenths quicker, or you're down 4 or 5 tenths. So it's really weird. There's no in between. So yeah, well, I mean, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and what is that through? Particularly the last sector, the last 2 corners for me were one of them where it's the lap is won or lost essentially.
It's really difficult because you don't want to run out too wide. Because if you do, obviously it invalidates the lap. So it was very close to just running as far out as you can and carrying as much speed through those last 2 corners. But they're definitely difficult.
And then also starting front row, you're obviously next to Kyle Felvis, one of your main championship rivals. Regarding going into turn 1, have you got many strategies, or is it just a case of get head down and just react to whatever happens on the grid?
He's going to be head down. Obviously, he's got a lot less weight than me, so we'll see what the pool's like. But I'm not going to battle that into the first corner if he's going to be quicker. We'll see what happens throughout the race. Be a bit strategic on this one.
Well, fantastic lap, Joe. What a great effort to put it on pole, and very, very last minute as well. So good luck, mate. Head down, and we'll hopefully speak after this race.
Cheers.
And there we go, Jack. That is one man in the zone, ready to go into the race straight away. And what a lap that was.
Apologies, it would help if I unmuted myself. I was about to say, yeah, great lap. You're absolutely right. And he was a bit disappointed that he didn't do a quicker lap in practice, but one thing I was wondering was whether or not he actually did a quicker lap in practice without the push-to-pass system, without the hybrid system that we've got in place here in the TCR. So that was going to be quite an interesting one as well, because of course, I mean, you'll know better than me, how many sort of seconds can you gain via the hybrid? I'm pretty sure in qualifying we were seeing, very low 34s.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I think Kyle Felvis had done a 33.7 with push to pass. So you're talking probably about close to 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds faster using that hybrid. But it's also dependent on how many of them you use in one lap. So obviously that lap will have been done as many times as you possibly can. In saying that, how realistic is it to do that in a race stint when you've got drivers also trying to battle next year? Probably quite a lot harder. But also he did mention, he'd gone a lot faster, but we'd seen a lot of people go a lot faster in practice. The likes of Rich Hayden, Josh Martin were up at the very, very front end of this grid, and we're going to qualifying, and they're down in P6 and P9, and I know them drivers, they weren't practicing using that hybrid system. It looks like it was just a case of they haven't hooked it up.
Yeah, which they'll probably be trying their best in this particular race to rescue those sort of points and get a little bit further forward. Because, of course, there are 2 races, though, today, isn't there? There's a 15-minute race that's about to come up. Then there's a, correct me if I'm wrong, full reverse grid for race number 2? Full
reverse grid, another 15-minute sprint. So not all is lost. And it was interesting enough, one of the drivers I did talk to before, Nicky Taylor, he was saying about this strategy where if you drop off the pack and there's not a really that great of a chance for you catching back up, it's worthwhile you putting that fastest lap in, using maybe 4, possibly 5 hybrids on that single lap, because that can then bag you 3 points and crawl back them points you would have gained anyway from trying to get onto the back of the pack and battling your way through. So interesting enough that drivers are definitely thinking a strategy on whether to gamble it and go for fastest lap, or whether it's worth trying to gain the position instead. So there's more than one tactic in the way to take these race sprints. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, because of course the fastest lap is 3 points.
3
worth,
points,
isn't it? Whereas normally in most race series it would only be 1. So it's definitely worth considering and saving that. Maybe even sticking new tyres on when you come back to the pits or something like that, and just trying to get those 3 points out of it. Talk us through very quickly on it's a very complicated subject these days, but the weight situation, just with maybe the top 4 at the moment, which of course Joel Lask, Carl Felvis, Eric Axelson and Nicky Taylor. I can see that Carl Felvis only got 15 kilograms on board, but his teammate Nicky Taylor has got 35 kilograms of ballast on board.
Yeah, so basically think of it before, where the handicap system, your levels are 1 to 5 as they were before, but instead of them being worth 10 kilogram, they're now only worth 5. So the likes of Kyle Felvis, you know, he'll be, let's say, on level 2, which will give him 10 kilogram, and then if he's 5th place in the championship, the top 5 positions in the championship as well get 5 kilograms. So hence why you look at Joe Lask, you know, he'll be a level 3 driver, giving him 15 kilogram, but then he's also first in the championship, giving him maximum ballast. So you've got the likes of Joe Lask, Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelson all on identical weight of 35 kilograms, whereas Kyle Felvis is the lightweight 15 kilogram. That, to be fair, should give him the benefit on acceleration, but also think of it in tyre wear, less scrub, and if he can look after them tyres, might have a bit more towards the end of that race.
I'm very interested to see into turn 4 actually as well, because braking with extra weight, the inertia is a lot harder, isn't it, to gain underneath the braking. So in theory, a driver who's got 20 kilograms less should be able to brake that little bit later and stop the car a little bit quicker, because gravity isn't working so hard to keep you going, basically. So on the opening lap, that could be a very important corner.
Yeah, and also another little insight bit here, Jack. The brake bias matters massively on this car. So for them drivers who maybe got a bit more weight and they want a bit more rotation, they'll be pushing that brake bias back to get that front end turned in. The issue being is the real strength in these cars is when you push that brake bias forward to get the front calipers to work. In that case, the lighter cars can still get the rotation doing that, but they also gain the braking performance. So it's how far forward will these drivers push the brakes to gain that advantage, but then is it going to cost them in the corners?
That's what we're about to find out, isn't it? Because we are about to get underway. The lights are coming on our screen. The engine notes are rising, and there's a sense of anticipation here at the Red Bull Ring, especially in the commentary box. 6 red lights, engine notes up. Are we going to be racing? Yes, we are, and it's a lot of wheel spin off the line by Joel Lask, our pole sitter, but he didn't use the hybrid straight away. In fact, now he is actually. Carl Felvis, as soon as he hit off the clutch, he was using the hybrid. Maybe that didn't help him as much as he thought it would. Maybe there was a little bit too much wheel spin. But as they go through the first corner, Felvis is right up the backside of Lask because he is using that hybrid straight away. He's going to run out of it before they get into the braking zone. Has Lask actually timed this to perfection? At the moment, it's track position advantage Felvis, who makes Lask go around the outside. Isn't going to be happening, and in fact a lot of cars lose a lot of grip. Eric Axelson, who had absolutely no pressure behind him really, just wended up out wide as well and allowed Nicky Taylor to go under the attack. The top 4 have pulled away from the likes of Elliot Dalton-Ayres, and they're going to do 2 by 2 into turn 4. Carl Felvis getting mugged here a little bit, but he's late on the brakes like we expected. Runs far too wide, and there's contact. Nicky Taylor on Joel Lask. That's allowed his HFT teammate Carl Felvis, who missed the corner, to pull away somewhat. Eric Axelson in 3rd, and look what's going on in the midfield here as well. This has got Joel Lask right in the thick of it. Paul Zanetechi, Mark Hughes, pretty much everybody who wasn't in that initial top 4 battling it out to be into 4th place. Now Elliot Dalton-Ayres leads with leads this pack anyway, with Rich Hayden, Andy Carroll, Paul Zanetechi, Joel Lask all the way down in 8th place now with Mark Hughes, and that has been an absolutely chaotic first lap, Dave.
Yeah, you know what, that was, if I'm honest, that was really unlucky. Kyle Felvis very, very deep into that corner. Joel Lask saw it brake, tried to get the undercut, but Nicky Taylor just had a little bit too much speed to get up that inside and scrub it off before he hit into the back of Joel. Very much a racing incident, but interesting enough, Nicky Taylor has backed it off, gave them positions back to give Joel that advantage. So brilliant sportsmanship, shows very clearly that that wasn't intentional even in the slightest there. Oh, that was Joel Lask that I saw span as well. So Joel Lask in the wars here a bit in this race. That must have been possibly John Jones or maybe Paul Zanatachi that maybe caused that there. I think them were the two drivers that were behind him. Oh, he misbraked it. Andy Carroll, that's a very, very late lunge up the inside of Elliot Dalton-Ayres. And I tell you what, it's Rich Hayden that has been on the move. Started P9, now found his way all the way up into P3.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure he probably doesn't know quite how he's got there either, but he is, so he might as well enjoy it. Carl Felvers and Eric Axelson, you'd expect to check out, especially with these four drivers battling themselves, well, falling over each other, I would argue, actually, for third place. That was a big lunge by Andy Carroll. I got the impression he didn't really mean that one. He was just sort of missed his braking zone, got a little bit over. Maybe he was using the hybrid, and maybe he sort of forgot that he would have to brake a little bit earlier. I'm not entirely sure. But either way, he's got Josh Martin crawling all over the back of him, hasn't he now? Rich Hayden trying to use the hybrid to get off the corner, stay ahead of Elliot Dalton-Ayres, just ahead, and going into the final two corners. It's an interesting place to use the hybrid there. Is that, in your opinion, Dave, is that somewhere where you'd be thinking to use it?
You know what, not on a lap it isn't necessarily where I would think about using it, but in a case of trying to defend your line, yes, 100%. In this early stage of the race, I don't know whether you really want to be sacrificing the that's Mark Hughes coming in the pits there. What will that be for? Is that a possible drive-through maybe by Mark Hughes? We'll keep an eye on that. I would suspect that maybe is a drive-through though. And also, actually, just looking at the list here as well, notice that John Jones is on the softs. He's going to try and make these tyres go the whole distance. That is very, very brave indeed. Also, Rich Hayden on the hard compound, everyone else on the medium. So, Rich probably going to lose out.
Oh my God!
And that looked like that must have been a lag spike. I don't know who that was from, whether that was Rich or Andy Carroll, but a huge lag spike there was enough to lift the back of the car and throw Andy Carroll into the barrier. That's not at all what we want to see, but I tell you what, it's exactly what Josh Martin wants to see. He goes way up into 4th place, and Elliot Dalton-Ayres has gone up in 3rd.
Yeah, no, that looked like a, well, I think probably both of them are probably a little bit annoyed about that. Maybe Rich Hayden slightly less, but Andy Carroll might be a little bit annoyed about that. But when he looks back at this broadcast, he'll notice that it's actually, there was nothing Rich could have done about that. They were both on full throttle. Yeah. All of a sudden it just lagged, and hopefully Andy Carroll will be receptive of that as Rich goes very wide and again uses that hybrid around the mid section of the lap. And I'm just wondering whether that's making him wash wide here or there, and actually he'd be better off, you know, not using it and being able to get back to full power a little bit cleaner, even if it means it's slightly underpowered compared to what he likes. Going through the final corner though, look at the gap that Josh Martin has been able to pull, and Nicky Taylor just whacks on that power and gets straight past Rich Hayden. Now we know Rich is, I think it was Paul Ricard, they decided that he was going to be very feisty in defence and actually very effective as well. I think he came home with the podium after that defence at Paul Ricard. Wasn't able to fend off a charging Nicky Taylor just yet though, who of course is recovering after he tried to give Joel Lask and a lot of other drivers their positions back after that lap 1 incident. But now we get to see basically a reverse grid from Nicky Taylor charged, don't we, Dave? Which is always very exciting.
We do indeed, and a Joel Lask return as well, so it'll be interesting. Let's keep an eye on them lap times. We'll keep you posted on what is exactly going on. Currently Joel Lask has just put in the fastest first sector of anyone on the track, so Joel Lask definitely 100% giving it everything to crawl these places back, and probably looking like he's going to end up posting the fastest lap of the race. So keep an eye on Joel Lask. He's definitely on the move back through, but he is significantly far back on the grid. Nicky Taylor, for instance, is already going around the left-hander up ahead up here. So you can see where Nicky Taylor is there, going to the left-hander after the junction. You're probably talking that, you know, Joe Lask is maybe a whole car length further back.
Yeah, it's going to be, well, very interesting indeed. I'm actually looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. We've still got 8 odd minutes to go. Carl Felvis in the race lead after his practice pace and after the qualifying pace all up until the last lap. He probably will feel like he deserves to be there. It's not like he got gifted the position that badly. Yes, okay, it was made slightly easier for him. The gap has been created for him, but he did deserve to be right at the front there battling for it. Josh Martin is being overtaken here by Nicky Taylor into turn 1. Nicky slides up the inside, and 2 positions in around 2 laps for in exactly the same position as well, really, for Nicky Taylor. He overtook Rich Hayden a lap ago. He's overtaken Josh Martin this time round, but it's a drag race now up to turn 3 to the sharp braking zone, which sees Josh Martin actually just about get track position. Who's going to be last of the late breakers? Josh Martin goes a little bit deep, misses the braking zone slightly. Nicky Taylor gets that back, and here comes Rich Hayden.
Yeah, fantastic racing the hybrids producing here. You saw there the weight difference between Josh Martin's car and Nicky Taylor, but Nicky Taylor very, very well, managing to get past Josh Martin on that start-finish line straight without any hybrid activation whatsoever. So just a good, hard, proper pass. Meanwhile, up in front, Axelsen is really starting to close the gap on Felvis. So after we've seen this battle here, hopefully we might be able to catch a bit of the Felvis option. Ooh. Rich Hayden gives Nicky Taylor a cheeky little tap there to say that's enough. Meanwhile, I tell you what, Josh Martin's going to do this. He's going to go around the outside.
Oh!
There's a tap. Taylor, what a move by Josh Martin round the outside of Rich Hayden, and manages to keep it. And I tell you what, Josh Martin's on the hybrid here. He's going to have Nicky Taylor as well. What a pass this is. Hopefully Rich doesn't make his 3 wide. Oh, and there's a collision. There's a collision between the back of Nicky Taylor's car and the front of Rich into the right-hander. It's a nice clean rejoin by Nicky Taylor, and Paul Zanatachi is innocent in this whole party but has found himself slap bang in the middle of all the action.
He did sort of get the impression about halfway through there that may be that contact was inevitable, put it that way. Nicky Taylor, for the 3rd lap in a row, makes the same move, but this time he's making it a couple of places down. Now, this is interesting. We haven't looked at the front battle for a while, but it was 6.5 minutes to go. Carl Felvis has been caught by a charging Eric Axelsen. And on that previous lap, Eric Axelsen, his best lap was a 1:34.699. For context, that's about 0.8 of a second quicker than Carl Felvis's best lap time. So, last lap time. So that is very, very impressive indeed. Now, my screen has got a little bit pixelated here, Dave. I don't know if yours has, but I think Eric Axelsen has got single figure in terms of the hybrid uses left, whereas Carl Felvis has got double figures. Am I right?
Yeah, I've just actually gone to clarify with Tom there. I believe it was Axelsen on 5. It is indeed. So Tom's just clarified there. Axelsen on 5 push to passes, half the amount that Felvis has got in front. So has that been to get that fastest lap and close that gap on the back of Felvis? My point here, Jack, is Felvis could have played an absolute blinder here, because any point Axelsen gets an overlap or gets a bit of speed on him, he's got the push to passes there to use. The only thing is, Felvis will not know how many Axelsen's got either. So, will he use them in retaliation, or will he just use them sparingly still and go for that fastest lap?
Yeah, it's a bit, to me, if I was Carl Felvis, it would be all about the track position. It would be all about the win. You know, the fastest lap would be nice, but it's a lot of time that he has to make up to try and catch up to Eric Axelsen now in terms of the fastest lap battle. I would rather just take the silverware and get out, to be honest. Look at this, though. I mean, we've been away from it for a couple of seconds. Rich Hayden being mugged there by Nicky Taylor and Paul Zanatachi. I think Rich Hayden must have, has he got damaged? Did he have a really bad run out of turn 1? We didn't quite see, but either way, he's had to drop down to 8th and is now behind Nicky Taylor, who, of course, he made contact with. I wonder if that's a bit of sportsmanship. We saw Nicky do it earlier on in the race. Maybe we've seen Rich just do it then as well. Maybe admit that he was slightly wrong and decided that he wasn't able to go back at it. Joel Lask has used every single push-to-pass available to him, every single hybrid usage available to him. So he is now running on empty, essentially, for the next 4.5 minutes. So if he's able to fight with these guys, it'll be very impressive indeed, put it that way, because they have all got minimal, but still a good amount of hybrid left. Nicky Taylor slots his way up the inside of Paul Zanatachi, and look, he's already on the back of his HFT teammate, Reese Bell. Reese going through the left-hander, but Nicky, with an enormous amount of speed, is able to get the apex on the right-hand side. He might be pushed through here by Paul Zanatachi, and the lovely hybrid as well, using it where Rich Hayden used it for so long at the beginning of this race, and he's made his way up into 5th. Zanatachi trying to follow through on Reese Bell just behind. Oh, we're just hoping and praying that there's not going to be any contact going into the final corner, but they just about hold on to the track.
Yeah, that corner is proving the tricky one. There's quite a lot of little touches going on in that corner particularly, and it's causing a little bit of drama. Rich Hayden with a significant overlap there up the inside of Reese Bell. Oh, I thought he was going to have a look at Zanatachi as well. That would have been a very, very late move. Yeah, Joel Lass managing to get on the back of this pack, but I just don't think he's going to be able to make the progress here, Jack, through without that hybrid system.
No, it's going to be a bit more difficult now, isn't it? And it will probably mute this this battle that we've got going on, but we'll enjoy it while it lasts, because Nicky and Zanatachi really putting on a show here, just like the likes of Rich Hayden did earlier on, and of course Joel Last charging through the order. They are giving us something to get excited about, which is what we always like to see, and it's one of the criteria for the driver of the day as well. You don't get any prizes for driver of the day anymore, but you do get that sense of pride, and we like to give that around and about the place. So Nicky Taylor certainly on there at the moment, even if he did cause that contact at the beginning. That is a little bit of a blot on his record. Zanatachi, right, getting involved here as well. Rich Hayden's been very entertaining, but again, a bit of a blot with that contact with Nicky. So plenty of drivers putting on a show for us. Hopefully it continues to the final whistle, as they say. Joel Last going very wide and very slowly, actually. I think he may have been a little bit bullied out of that one by Reese Bell, but it hasn't happened just yet. Eric Axelson has dropped behind Carl Felvis just a touch. Carl Felvis has actually just gone and put a fastest middle sector together. They're the fastest, it's his fastest lap, I believe, has just been put on. Oh, no, not quite, but very close to it. So Felvis is trying to push on strong. Don't know how many push to passes he's got left. Axelson, I think he's using his last one as we speak. But Felvis looks pretty comfortable.
Yeah, he does indeed. And I tell you what, Felvis put a little bit of a hard charge on there. Still 7 push to passes left, whereas Eric Axelson is really ate through them. But tell you what, Eric seems to be able to really get the lap time out of the car without using too much of these hybrids. He's actually really fighting for a very good lap time indeed. Still holds the fastest lap on a 34.7 dead. So Felvis has got to find a little bit here to actually take him 3 points away from Eric. And I tell you what, this will shape the championship lovely for Eric, with Joel Last being all the way down in P9 and Taylor in P5.
You're absolutely right, actually. I hadn't even thought about the championship too closely. But, sorry, at the corner of my eye, all of a sudden I thought Carl Felvis was off the road there. Paul Zanatachi's not off the road, but he is going very wide, and Rich Hayden is slotting his way nicely through. Rich Hayden doesn't have any hybrids left. Zanatachi will have 2, so even if Rich gets through, hopefully a little bit cleaner than that, it won't really stand much of a chance as he gets onto the start-finish straight. Rich had to slow up there to try and allow Zanatachi to get pointed back in the straight line. That's allowed Reese Bell and Joel Last to catch up, and they are closing in on each other, just squeezing. I thought there was going to be contact there. Joel trying to box in Reese Bell just behind Rich Hayden to allow him to get through. And in fact, that's absolutely brilliant driving by Joel Last there, Dave, isn't it? Because he just used the environment to his advantage.
That's fantastic. And I tell you what, I bet you know as well as I do, Jack, as a driver getting boxed in, there is nothing more frustrating than you cannot go anywhere and seeing the driver you're trying to beat just drive past your window, and there's nothing you can do. Joel Last here, a very aggressive move up the inside of Rich Hayden, and I tell you what, it's Reese Bell who's going to capitalise on this. Oh, there's contact. Rich Hayden obviously not realising Reese Bell was on the right there, a little bit of squeezing. I don't like to see that, if I'm honest. A straight is a straight. You should keep your wheel reasonably straight there as well. But I tell you what, Reese Bell really profited from this, and there's contact again. Reese Bell just slow on the apex there, and Rich just using him as a little bit of a break. And Joel Last and Rich Hayden here in stalemate because they've both not got hybrid.
Yeah, to be honest, I think Reese Bell drove pretty well there. Just parked it on the apex of one of the most important corners. And, the driver, as a driver behind, you can't really do anything about it. So big, a lot of contact. Somehow Joel Last has got through all of that. Reese Bell and Rich Hayden are side by side. We are on the final lap of the race. We will have to cut to Carl Felvis coming across the line. He deserves to have his plaudits. He deserves to have his moment in the sun. But it's very, very interesting, this battle here for around the 7th place. And to be honest, Rich Hayden's been in amongst it for the entire race, hasn't he? But coming out of the last corner is the man who decided that he hated front-wheel drive all those months ago. But here he is at the Red Bull Ring in a TCR, taking a fastest lap and taking the checkered flag and being on the top step of the podium. Carl Felvis, well done to him. Eric Axelson comes across the line in 2nd place. He fought hard, but it wasn't quite enough. Elliot Dalton is in 3rd. Josh Martin in 4th. Nicky Taylor rounds out the top 5 with Paul Zanatachi. Those top 5 really are very spread out by the end there. You wouldn't have thought that 5 minutes ago. Zanatachi 6th, Joel Laskin 7th somehow after all of that. And Rich Hayden came across the line in 8th place. Now, who's going to come across the line here in 11th? Is it John Jones or is it Kenny Press? John Jones just about gets his nose ahead. Remember, it will be a full reverse grid, which will see Mark Hughes, who came in 13th after being in the pits, be on pole position for race 2. You won't want to miss it. We're going to go to a very quick advert, and then Dave Marshall is going to have a chat to our podium sitters.
So what an action-packed race that was, and we'll get straight on with the interviews, going to our P3 finisher. And I tell you what, a real turn of form. Elliot Dalton-Ayres, yet again, find yourself in a really strong position. Well done on the P3.
Yeah, thank you. It was a really good race. Managed, after the first lap, managed to pull a gap between, I think it was Josh behind me, and then kind of just went from there because I was kind of on my own for most of the race.
And regarding the track, how you find the track for racing? Do you think it's going to lead to a reasonably clean second race, or is it these big braking zones that just create that much bunching up? You've got to be really wary who's behind you.
I think the bunching up is definitely going to happen. Like what I saw in race 1, a car getting flips nearly, I think, and then some other crashes. Yeah, I think it might not be the cleanest of races in race 2.
Well, best of luck for that, Elliot. I'd rather be sat here than in your car, I can tell you that much. But needless to say, fantastic effort. Well done for finishing at P3. And I tell you what, looking good now for the championship. A real turn of pace. Well done.
Thank you, Dave.
And moving on to our P2 finisher, Eric Axelsen. Real strong mid-race there. But Kyle just had enough of them hybrids left just to create a bit of a gap at the end there. But good, strong pace in the race there.
Yeah, I'm happy with the pace. I wasn't too happy with the quality though, but yeah, race was good.
But you know what? You're not the only driver to say that. Is there a reason, for whatever reason, why is drivers struggling in qualifying on this track? Is it a track you're finding hard to put all the sectors together consistently to get that fast lap in?
Yeah, might be it. I think the first corner is really tricky to get in, you know, to get a good one, and yeah, there are also a few other places that's hard to like nail. So yeah, that's
I was saying to chat myself, this for me is probably the hardest track I've been to so far to consistently do a really good fast lap time. But it does seem, even only using maybe one hybrid, you've got really good pace here, even though you've got quite a lot of weight on board as well.
Yeah, really like the track and the car. It's the car is great on this track, and but the Kyle was fast today. I think he had the fastest lap at 2, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic effort there, Eric. Well done on the P2, and I tell you what, good championship battle shown its way with Joel and Taylor not necessarily having the best of races.
Thank you, Dave.
Oh no. I'll move forward onto our P1 driver. It feels like we should have been seeing this a little bit sooner in the season, but Kyle really starting to find form now in your dreaded front wheel drive class, but you cannot really grumble with that. Fastest lap time by over 6/10, and also just using them hybrids at leisure when you needed to do them. Couldn't have been better.
Yeah, it feels good to be back in the season. It's been way too long, and this car is so much better than the second. Slow front wheel drive cars are not it. This is better.
So I've got to ask, obviously it was the perfect race 1 for yourself, putting it on pole, not really having that much competition away, just simply drove away from the pack. Race 2 though, not going to be the same sort of order in form? Have you got any plans there for race 2? Or are you going to be maybe a little bit more patient and use the pace you clearly have in the car to just pick them off over the sprint race?
Yeah, I mean, I won't say too much in case any of them are watching the YouTube chat, but just keep it chill into turn 1 and let everyone like fall over each other, and we should.
Well, honestly, Kyle, absolutely chuffed for you to bring home your first P1 of the season. And I tell you what, the way the championship is shaping up, it is definitely looking like it's still all to play for, and it's wide open at the moment. So, fantastic effort, brilliant P1. Let's see what you can do in race 2.
Cheers, Dave.
Well, there we go, Jacker. I nearly said something very, very naughty there, but we managed to refrain and pull myself back from saying it. Yeah, Kyle there, he knows he's got pace in the car. I tell you what, race 2's going ahead. If he can just sit this back and take them places when they arrive at him, instead of him trying to push through this grid, this could be a night for Felvis.
You know what? It's a good opportunity, isn't it, for him to really stake a claim, a bit like Eric Axelsen has done there as well. You know, scoring some really good points and taking advantage of the fact that some of the drivers maybe didn't. So it's still, I mean, Carl Felvis on drawing with points with Elliot Dalton there. As we bring you the championship standing, but we'll do that at the end because first of all, what we want to do is talk about what's coming up after this particular series. Now, we're obviously only about halfway through. Well, nearly bang on halfway through, in fact. We'll be at the end of this evening. But we're already talking about next season here at VRRC. We've already got plans. And you'll notice there's a Mazda MX-5 involved, but you also notice that the hybrid is back. So we've taken the hybrid out of the TCR cars and we've stuck it under the bonnet of an MX-5. Don't ask us how it works. That's the advantage of it being a sim race and not a real-life car. We're honestly taking them over to do a tour of the USA. I won't try and do the accent. I'm going to try and refrain as best I can while commentating on it as well. But a brilliant idea in terms of calendar as well as the car, Dave. A lot of tracks we don't actually feature that much at all here on VRRC.
Yeah, and I think it's probably fair to say a lot of tracks that, in general, sim groups don't tend to run, which is a bit of a shame because some of the tracks are absolutely fantastic. Some of my absolute favourites are on there, obviously including Laguna Seca, brilliant track, but also Virginia Raceway on the 9th of October. What a track that'll be. For me, probably the track on there that I'll be most looking forward to doing right at the end of the season as well. But yes, as you said, MX-5, it doesn't obviously have the full-blown TC touring car engine in it. It's still a 1600 or 1800, I believe. Someone might have to correct me in the YouTube chat. Might be an 1800. Normally it's a naturally aspirated, but we have added a turbo to these MX-5, so they're quite a lot quicker down the straight. But obviously with boost, we can also add that hybrid system and make it so we've got that hybrid system used on the straights as well. So makes these championships just a little bit more interesting, allows drivers maybe with an outside chance of getting next to some of these drivers, use that hybrid and really battle them into some corners, make them drivers think twice.
Yeah, exactly. And just before we go over to race 2, keep in mind that, yes, it's an 8-round championship, but we've got more endurance races as well. It's one on, one off in terms of endurance to sprint races. We start sprint, endurance, and so on all the way to Watkins Glen, where we finish on an endurance. Right, that's enough about next season. We need to go back to this season because we're not even halfway through the Touring Car European Tour. We need to get on with the second race here at the Red Bull Ring. A lot of drivers there, Dave, contemplating what's going to be happening in race 2. And I believe it was Elliot Dalton who said that he expects a little bit of carnage.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I'm going to put you on the spot now, Jack. I know who I think is probably going to get the upper hand. And I think you'd be daft to bet against Felvis as long as he can keep his head and be nice and patient through the grid. But who have you got for this race 2?
To be honest, I'm going to go for Joel Lask.
That's not
7th
bad.
place.
Yeah.
7th place. Won't have to use and abuse his hybrid just as much as long as he keeps it out of trouble. Rich Hayden will be for a strong podium position, I think, but Joel Lask will be the driver for me that I think will go on to win this. I'm going to put that out there. I tell you what, I miss commentating with you sometimes, Dave, and then you put me under the bus like that. You know what? I wish Andy was still here. Andy is back next week. He has just got a bit of hay fever. He's got a big gig at Spa on the weekend, so we don't want him to ruin his voice. Right. the lights are about to come on. We are about to tick down to the start of race number 2. The engine notes are up, the lights are on, and that can only mean one thing here at the Red Bull Ring. We've got racing here at the Touring Car European Tour, powered by VRRC. It was a good start by Mark Hughes. Fantastic start going around the outside, but look at Andy Carroll trying to charge his way up. Kenny Press might get swamped. Kenny Press just goes almost straight on and straight into the side of Mark Hughes, who absolutely nails the first corner, it's worth saying as well. Andy Carroll will probably get himself up to second place ahead of Kenny Press. John Jones is following through. In fact, Kenny's just decided to lift off the throttle by the looks of it. He doesn't want to get involved in any mishaps going into turn 2. And Andy Carroll, Jones, then Lask in the background. Lask actually diving up the inside, so he's doing well on my early prediction. He's already got past Rich Hayden, who's still stuck in 6th place. Joel Lask gets a little bit of a door bang for good measure off John Jones, making sure that John making sure that Joel knows he's not in for an easy battle going into turn 4. Last of the late breakers, John Jones goes very, very late. Unfortunately, goes a little bit wide as well. And if anybody was watching the F1, you don't want to go around the outside of that particular corner. Rich Hayden with a really good run, though, on Nicky Taylor. Keep an eye on that battle, because obviously that's a reignition of a little bit of a rivalry from race number 1, of course. So keep an eye out on this one. Battle for the top 5. Rich up to 5th, sorry. Nicky up to 6th. Josh Martin's there in 7th place. Axelson hasn't moved too far, though. Kyle Felvis is up to 8th place. So some really good movers and shakers, but Eric Axelson has been left a little bit, and so is Dalton Ayres. Oh, big move here. I was about to pass over to you, Dave, but Josh Martin with a really aggressive look up the inside. Nicky Taylor didn't quite happen for Josh Martin, but that is a show of intent.
Yeah, and I tell you what, look, oh, there's that bit that I was exactly on about the start of the race weekend. You saw as he turned in that last corner, came across that sausage curb and lost the back end, and it scrubs all your speed off. And there we go, Kyle Felvis through, and that's an aggressive move by John Jones on, I believe that was Rich Hayden. So very, very hard impact. I imagine that this will be probably job done for Nicky Taylor. But actually, it looks like the weight might be holding him back a bit here, not managing to make the progress. And I tell you what, here's a driver that we did mention. Andy Carroll is having the drive of the day, managing to find his way up into P1. Nicky Taylor all the way off the track there. We didn't see what had happened then, but Nicky Taylor a long way off the track there. Rich Hayden still in front of that pack, but he's got Kyle Felvis all over the back end of him now.
Yeah, and they're just trying to dive each other left, right, and centre, aren't they, at this point?
There's
there's more contact. There's contact between Elliot Dalton Ayres, I think that was. No, it was Eric Axelson. John Jones is getting a touch up the backside by Paul Zadatachi as well. This is all getting a little bit messy, isn't it? Axelson got through, and Elliot Dalton Ayres. Josh Martin now leading this little group. Rich Hayden has somewhat got a bit of a gap. They're almost going 3 wide through corners. You wouldn't even dream of going 2 wide through. John Jones squeezing on the inside there. Nicky Taylor, to be honest, Jones has been in the war there, but he is putting his car in some places where you just think it doesn't necessarily belong there.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to say this now. I can't think of many championships where 2-3 laps in, we get as many drivers side by side this far into the race. This is a bit unheard of. I mean, look at this. We've got a battle at the back with 4 cars, and that up in front is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars all got a chance. So that's from Josh Martin P5 all the way back to Taylor, all got a chance here within 1 lap of battling with each other. That doesn't happen in that many championships. It must be the hybrid system.
Yeah, no, it must be the hybrid system, or it's to do with the fantastic drivers that VRRC attract, of course. Dave, you've got to give VRRC some credit where it's due, I would say, and a lot of these drivers have been sticking around for quite some time, showing that they actually really agree and they're really happy with the service that they're providing. And I'm not just kissing ass, so they make sure that they keep hiring me. I do think it's a good idea.
I tell you what,
2 birds and all that.
Axelson here has put a bit of a mid-charge on, really breaking away from this pack, already on the back of Rich Hayden. So Eric Axelson here, I thought it looked like Felvis had the measure off, and Axelson was about 3 positions behind Felvis on lap 1. Needless to say, now we're about 3 laps in, 4 laps in, and Axelson now is starting to pull the gap, and Felvis is actually behind him now. So interesting enough, Axelson, not normally that aggressive of a driver or makes progress that quickly, has actually shown his hand here and actually proven he's starting to get the measure of this car and really looking racy. Currently, now after race 1, leading the championship, but very close between him and Joe Lask.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Axelson was one of those drivers where going into the endurance races, I thought he would actually have a stronger race than if he was in the sprint races, to be honest. But and I didn't see the endurance race, unfortunately. But it does look like he's sort of getting his elbows out here, and it's serving him well for the time being. Nicky Taylor getting past Elliot Dalton-Ayres. He looks like he has a half-decent run through turn 1, so don't be surprised if that position then re-reverses itself. Oh, going into P1, Joel Lask and Andy Carroll are fighting it out. There we go, into the third turn, of course, because apparently that long straight going up to that sharp hairpin is apparently a corner. That is T2. But as they come barreling back down the hill, they'll go into turn 4 with Andy Carroll on the hybrid system. Joel Lask not able to quite. Oh, but look at that. Andy Carroll has missed his braking zone because he was carrying a little bit too much speed. That's given Carroll a little bit of a wide exit. Still got the inside, but Lask has got track position. He's got his nose ahead for the time being. Can he sweep round the outside? It's going to be a bit touch and go. It's no touch, but there's all go by Joel Lask.
Yeah, and you know what? We missed a driver out here a bit. Look at this. Mark Hughes, currently front runner in reverse grid race, is still very much holding his own. Sat P3 currently in front of Felvis. It looks like the pack might start to close on the back of him. But fair play, Mark, a very good job in P3 at the moment, and I cannot believe how close it was to Kenny Press nearly tapping the back end, and it would have been race over for Mark on the first corner. So fair play for keeping his head and pulling it away in P3 at the moment.
Yeah, and I think Hughes has got a fair amount of hybrids left. I think he's just used one, which means he's going to go down to 9. But compared to the drivers around him, that's a lot better. I mean, Joel Lask is down to 4, potentially even 3 now with 8 minutes to go. So, yeah, really, really good driving by Mark Hughes. You're right to call him out there. That's very impressive indeed, especially with the likes of the drivers that are now behind him trying to catch him up. But yes, they may keep falling all over each other as Martin tries to go round.
What a move! That is move of the day, that was absolutely fantastic. Go from left side of Eric, judge the gap between the cars and cut back in front of Felvis, to the side of Felvis, and pass him as well. What a move, Josh Martin. That was fantastic. Sorry,
I'm glad you caught that. I was looking at my timing screen. That's absolutely fine by me. Martin's not done there either. He's going past Carl Felvis on the inside of turn 4. Fantastic driving. This lap is one to remember, I'm sure, by by Josh Martin. Carl getting a good run and going into the infield and through the left-handers on the inside. But again, really good battling. This is all playing into the hands of Mark Hughes. He's on the hard tyres as well. So he'll be a little bit stronger towards the end of the race, potentially, than some of these other drivers, especially the ones just behind him, because they are taking an awful lot of life out of their tyres.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I just remember now as well, talking about Josh Martin, he was very, very close to getting driver of the day last round as well. So definitely a driver that seems to be impressing us week in, week out with his driving. Just not necessarily managing to get the results that maybe it looks like he can get. He's not far away. Eric Axelson though, look at that. Felvis up to P4, and now Eric's dropped all the way back to P7. So this is one of them effects of the hybrid. The race can be like a yo-yo. Look at that, now back down to P8. So he's now lost all that progress. 6 minutes left to go, and Eric's gone 4 places back. And I tell you what, is this a case of he's looking after his hybrids? Or is this a case of the other drivers are really starting to push on the pace now?
Nicky Taylor gets past Josh Martin, and he's dragging Elliot Dalton-Ayres through, whether Josh Martin likes it or not. I think they're going into the braking zone. I think Elliot got a little bit excited, maybe missed the braking zone just a touch. Luckily, no harm, no foul, and actually gets a really good one using the hybrid around the outside. He's going to get boxed in, though, and like you said earlier, Dave, it's the most frustrating thing in the world as Josh Martin launches himself up the inside of Nicky Taylor. But Nicky Taylor with that cutback gets a fantastic run, and I think that move will that position will just be about Nicky Taylor's. He's got his nose ahead, he's got his car ahead. Crowbarring the gap open, though, is Josh Martin. It's not quite to be at the moment as Elliot Dalton-Ayres gets involved. Eric Axelson's watching this, praying and hoping that he can get involved as well before it all dies down. Dalton-Ayres ahead of Josh Martin after all his hard work. Nicky Taylor will try and use that advantage, trying to get a gap and maybe catch up to his HFT teammate Carl Felvis, who's caught up to the back of a podium sitter in Mark Hughes at the moment. We'll have to keep an eye out on that one just to see. Yes, Lask and Carroll are very much away from each other and away from the rest of the field, but Mark Hughes and Carl Felvis are going side by side across the start-finish line.
That was brilliant. That looked to me like Kyler managed to get past, going towards the last corner. Mark judged it perfectly to get that undercut. Oh, he's a little bit slow through turn 1, look. That looks to me like Felvis is going to maybe just about get the run. But remember, Mark's got no weight. Felvis has got about 15 kilograms, so won't be quite as efficient on the brakes. But I tell you what, I can't remember many races where we've been this close to the end and we've got this many cars battling for position. Fantastic.
Nicky Taylor there from a very long way back. Credit to Mark Hughes, I would say, because he must have been looking slightly in his mirrors. He gave him the room, and Nicky Taylor, unlike a lot of drivers we've seen so far tonight, actually managed to get the car stopped and get on the apex just about. So really good driving from both of them. Mark Hughes is doing a great job.
Sorry to interrupt you, but Carroll's got back past Joe Lask. I mean, where do you look? Look at this battle on screen now, but also the leads had to change as well. This has gone 3 abreast towards a left-hander. Luckily, all the drivers sort themselves out, and there's a tap there from Ellie Daltonez on the back of Mark. Brilliant car control, though. Kept his foot in it, and I tell you what, Josh Martin's now dropped all the way back to P8, and now we've got a HFT battle between Felvis and Taylor. Taylor up into P3.
Remember, this isn't a team championship, and Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvis are only separated by 7 points in terms of championship standings. Oh, big hit up the back from, well, I'm not sure who actually administered it. I think it was Josh Martin on Elliot Daltonez. Rich Hayden goes through on Eric Axelson as well. So Rich Hayden, I think, actually gained 2 positions there.
Yeah.
Looks like Josh Martin's going to drop back as well. So Rich actually might take advantage of 3 drivers actually there. Carl Felvis getting ahead of Nicky Taylor for the time being, and you're right, Andy Carroll and Joel Lass continue to scrap for the top place.
This is brilliant racing between the top 2. The cars look relatively clean. That probably means there hasn't been that much contact. But I tell you what, this just shows the class of driver. Andy Carroll, not necessarily there in the championship at the moment with results, but this just shows he is battling wheel to wheel with the championship current leader, and he's batting P7, and yet you can't really differentiate between the 2 cars. What fantastic racing this is, and it just shows what class of driver is in this championship. Fantastic effort.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I thought it was hot in my office yesterday trying to commentate on MX5 action. It feels like the heat has built up again, even though it's about 10 degrees cooler outside. It's ridiculous. I'm sweating buckets. I don't know how the drivers are facing it at the moment, but I'll tell you what, if we had 20-minute races still, I don't think I would have a voice. It's very, very, very impressive, I would say. But at the moment, we'll give you a quick rundown. 2.5 minutes to go. Joel Lask, followed by Andy Carroll. That will probably change in the next lap. Nicky Taylor then in 3rd place, followed by Carl Felvis. That'll probably change within the next lap. Mark Hughes, Eric Axelson, Rich Hayden. Well, to be fair, Eric Axelson might not change in the next lap, but these guys certainly are. They're not even waiting a lap, because Paul Zanatechi and Josh Martin, who has been pretty much everywhere in this race so far, and has certainly caught my attention, the driver of the day, is right there in the thick of it. But he's now just about inside the top 10. 10th place for Josh Martin. We were talking about him potentially going on to get a podium about 5 minutes ago. It just goes to show how quickly this sort of thing can change in touring cars, and that's why people love to come back to it. And that's why we, to be honest, put a lot of touring car championships on, and with the hybrid, certainly made it very, very unique. Elliot Daltonez using that hybrid system, Paul Zanatechi using the hybrid system to get past Rich Hayden. Took advantage of a lot of drivers earlier on, Rich Hayden, and it slipped all the way back down into that 10th with Josh Martin just going through on him as well. But this, it's almost like race 1, we had a battle for 7th place. So it was like, we've got to have another battle for 7th place. It's got to involve Zanatechi, and it's got to involve Rich Hayden, Elliot Daltonez, and Josh Martin. It's basically the same drivers, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't quite know where Paul Zanatechi came from there. It seemed like he wasn't in the picture, and then 1 lap later, all of a sudden, he's battling for P7 and P6. That was a bit like, where did he come from? But fair play Zanatechi, really coming on strong at the end, and that's not to say I probably should have kept an eye on it. Maybe he just held his hybrids back a bit longer than the rest of the drivers, and he's upped his pace towards the end of the race, making him a little bit more competitive at the end there. This is brilliant use of hybrid. Look at that. Hybrid right at the end, just to gain a bit of track position. That's going to save him a lot of time through these last 2 corners as well. Josh Martin very, very wide going through here. But I tell you what, when you watch a driver trying to push the limits, I mean, you couldn't get much further on the limit than Josh Martin there. Needless to say, let's have a look quickly what's happening again up front as well. Joe Lask, Andy Carroll still just 0.3 back from that lead position. And wow, what fair racing that was there through turn 1 between Zanatachi and Elliot Daltonez. Andy Carroll, though, is all over the back on this last lap of Joe Lask. And I believe, look at this, Joe Lask, no push to passes left, is that Andy Carroll was still 4.
Yeah, he's using one of them at the moment to
Yeah.
try and get past, but that means he's still got 3. So Joel Last can try everything to defend, and he will try everything to defend this first place as well.
Is he gonna
It's
get
going
a
to be
cutback
very,
here?
very difficult. Andy Carroll looking for that cutback. Joel Last running the normal standard line. Andy Carroll's using the hybrid now. Now, that's a bit brave because he will end up going into the braking zone with the hybrid still active. And in fact, he has. So that may have actually ruined his run through the left-hander.
If he can get a good run through here, though, chat, if he can get a good run through here, this is where it could happen for him. Get on the power, use it now, and get the drag up the straight. He might have just caught a bit of gravel there, though. That might have hindered him. That might be the difference between him getting an overlap into this corner and not. He's not going to do it. He's not going to quite get the overlap into this last corner. Will he manage to get a hybrid activation before the line? Will he do this?
I don't think he will. I don't think he's got
gonna.
any left, actually. Joel Lask will take the victory. Andy Carroll throwing everything at him on the final lap, but it's not going to be enough. And I think that's a case of maybe overusing the hybrid and overdriving the car there from Andy Carroll. Nicky Taylor managed to get past Carl Felvers. Mark Hughes, is he going to hold on to a 5th place? He is! Mark Hughes ahead of Eric Axelson. Josh Martin, Elliot Daltonez, Paul Donatachi, and Reese Bell actually in the background as well. Rich Hayden comes across the line, but there are 3 wide almost. Apologies, 3 wide for 8th place there. Great racing, it's making me choke.
I mean, tell you what, it's our hard jump to choose a driver of the day. From that grid, that could easily go to about 4 different people from what I've seen. Fantastic racing.
Yeah, I mean, my vote may be leaning towards Josh Martin. He was always one keeping an eye out on. He was thoroughly in the mix in every single battle that we saw. Mark Hughes, just for that standalone second race, and just a fantastic, he was right in the front for a very long time. Very impressive indeed. Number of drivers you could sort of throw out there. I'm sure there'll be people in the chat throwing out Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvers' name as well for a driver of the day. Maybe we'll have a discussion in the Discord and get back to you, because Dave, we've got some podium sitters for you to have a chat to as well.
We do indeed. Are we going to do a quick ad break first?
No, we don't. We go straight in.
Straight into the interview room. So we'll straight away, while he's going round the track, go straight to our P3 driver, Nicky Taylor. That wasn't an easy race, and I tell you what, I was saying to Jack, I don't know of many championships where you can be racing this wheel to wheel that long into a race and then trying to manage these hybrids on which position you're in. It must be so challenging as a driver.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle was a bit miffed with me that I got 3rd over him because of team and he needed the points apparently, but at the end of the day, I'm a racing driver. I have more push passes left, so I felt entitled to keep that. And also the driving standards from one person in particular, I won't mention names, was atrocious tonight because I got hit by them in both races and I will be protesting both races. So yeah, apart from all that, to get back through to 3rd was quite good, and yeah, just not the kind of way I expected my Wednesday night to go, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I've got to admit, he did seem to get a bit beat up in race 1. We didn't see as much of it in race 2. We didn't really see what happened. But regarding your championship, this championship, as you can probably imagine, is an absolute pogo at the moment of which drivers are coming out on top. And I tell you what, Nicky, it's your name that keeps getting dragged up in these race 2 finishes, and it's a good job it is, because I tell you what, you're right in this championship hunt now.
Yeah, well, I think me and Joel deserved a good race result in race 2 tonight, to be fair, because we both had appalling race 1s and it didn't end well for us. But at the end of the day, I got binned twice in the first race and then once in the second, so yeah, it's what it is. I had the pace tonight, and Kyle seemed to think otherwise, but I had the pace to be at the front, and I had the pace to possibly even challenge Kyle for the win in first race, but wasn't C. But yeah, hopefully Hockenheim can go a bit better, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, hopefully so. Nothing like a bit of team rivalry, eh, Nicky? Fantastic result, bringing home a podium, and well done for the championship as well. I'm sure you'll be quite happy when you see the championship table.
Cool, cheers.
I will move forward onto our P2 driver. I know you said P3 driver there. P2 driver, only just Andy Carroll, what a race that was. Proving your utter class there. Showing you, even though you're not there in the championship at the moment, you are definitely there on lap time. A very strong result for you there indeed. I think Joel will also agree with this. Really, really putting the stress on him towards the end of that race.
Yeah, if I turned ABS on for the first couple of rounds, I might be further up the table, but sabotage myself a bit there. But yeah, that was obviously had a bit of a lag issue in race 1, which caused Rich to sort of spin me out. But yeah, obviously was in a good starting position for race 2, and yeah, just sort of thought use a few push to passes at the beginning to try and get into the lead, and then obviously Joel was not far behind me, and obviously in the mid part of the race I didn't really want to fight him too much because I could see that Kyle was third behind us. I didn't want him catching us up because he's going to be rapid. So yeah, just kind of sort of tried to stay with him, use the odd push to pass just to kind of keep close to him. And then yeah, going into the last lap I had sort of 5 or 6 left, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I fancy this. But yeah, he obviously had a few left as well, and yeah, I was just finding it after those first couple of straights, just finding a place to kind of deploy it to maximum effect, and yeah, close finish in the end. But yeah, Joel's super quick, so I was very pleased to be able just to stay with him and give him a bit of a fright on the last corner. So yeah, no.
Well, I tell you what, Andy, bear in mind as well, there is a drop round score from this championship. Your championship is actually shaping up like you're really pulling your way up the ladder, and you're very, very close on points now with the podium guys. So is this a turn of pace? You know, you've realised now the car can have ABS. Is this now a realisation that, hang on, I might actually be in this for the championship?
Yeah, I mean, I've got pretty decent pace. You know, I think Joel, Nicky, you know, they've still got a few tenths a lap on me. So it's just gonna come down to, I think, you know, what happens on track, and you know, whether you have a 1 or 2 less stellar finishes, it's probably going to determine who ends up where. But yeah, I've still got a bit of time to catch up to the likes of Joel and Nicky. But yeah, I think I'm definitely moving in that direction, which is good.
Well, huge congratulations, Andy. Well done on taking a P2, and also well done on taking our driver of the day vote as well. Top man, and the medal will be on its way towards you very shortly.
Thanks, Dave.
I'll move forward onto our race 2 winner. Joel, I imagine it's probably a bit of a bittersweet managing to sort of recover from a little bit of a disastrous race 1, but I take it you can still go away going, you know what, I managed to do in race 2 what I needed to do, and it's still a good championship hold.
100%. Race 1 was an interesting one, but it was damage limitation there. Looks like the HFT boys are going to be out with their handbags in the debrief later on, but we'll see what happens with that. No, it was a cracking race, and fair play to Andy. I know he said I was super quick, but yeah, he had me going right up until the end there. I was a little bit worried. I thought I gapped him halfway through the race, and yeah, then suddenly he came back out of nowhere, so that caught me off guard a little bit, to be honest. He had some serious pace.
Yeah, I mean, really quickly, this is probably one of the first times you've ever raced with a system like the hybrid system. How challenging is it to drive it, to judge whether that driver behind's got them, doesn't have them, you know, when do you defend, when do you not defend? Is it really like that hard on strategy, or is it a bit of just you get your head down and what'll be will be?
You can sort of figure out when people use them. I mean, I was counting with Andy how many times he suddenly had a spur of speed, but I lost count after a while, and I was focusing on trying to keep him behind me. And little did he know I only had 1 push to pass left for the last couple of laps, so I was getting a little bit worried because I knew he had a few more. And then on that last lap, I see that he deployed a couple more times, so yeah, that was a little bit squeaky bum time there.
Well, fantastic effort there, Joe. Well done on a P1, and also congratulations on holding P1 in the championship as well. So probably not great news for you, but you're holding maximum ballast as well going forward into next week's race as well.
Love it, can't wait.
Spot on, Joe. Speedy shot.
Cheers.
And there we go, Jack. As I think he about summed it up perfectly. HFT might have the handbags out later, but I tell you what, you know as well as anyone, the biggest rivalry on the grid is always your teammate.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I remember my year at racing, I had Michael Priest as a teammate. Some people might recognise him for these days in touring cars and stuff. And yeah, he was my teammate actually in his first ever year of racing. And, it started off all friendly, as it does with Michael Priest, but then that rivalry sort of grew, and going for championships against each other all of a sudden can get a little bit fraucous. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely great friends now and everything like that. As soon as everything's done and dusted, tomorrow those guys will be fine with each other and they'll be practicing for next week. So that's how it goes. But we can actually have a look and see how it's impacted the championship. Joel Last got 129 points. Looked like it wasn't going to be his evening, to be honest. He's come out of it actually stronger than he went into it. He's fair few ahead of Eric Axelson now. Nicky Taylor in third place. Oh, so actually, he's joint second, isn't he, really? Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelson. Carl Felvis in fourth, 110 points. He has had a good evening as Carl Felvis, better than he was probably expecting. Elliot Dalton-Ayres, the third of the HFT boys, in fifth position, with Andy Carroll in sixth. You mentioned it to him there. It's not the end of the world, to be honest, and he seemed pretty optimistic.
You know what, Jack? Andy Carroll is one of them where I believe, I might have to double check on this, I think he was just inside the top 10 going into this round. So he's managed to leapfrog both Josh Martin and Rich Hayden up into P6. But more of the story, he's on now 95 points, not that far off the likes of Elliot and Kyle just in front of him. So honestly, Andy Carroll's one of them drivers. If he can keep his head down, keep his car clean, you heard from Joe, he has got some pace in the car now. Now he's realised it's got ABS. First 2 rounds of the season, he's running without it. You know, he actually could be a real challenger later on this season because he's got some serious pace in that car.
I was going to say, if you gave him, let's say, 10 points for the ABS that he was missing out on, it probably would be more. He'd be up into the top 5, but very close. We'd be talking about him and Carl Felvis.
He span out of Barcelona. I saw it now. I thought that was a very, very strange crash. Braking for the hairpin at Barcelona, and just at the very point you turn in, I don't know whether you can remember this, his car locked up and span right into the barrier.
Yeah, and I thought it was a rear diff, actually.
And I went, blinking heck, has he got a handbrake on his car, or did he think he was going to run into someone or something? And it turns out at the end of the race, he went, how are you boys braking so late for that? And it turns out everyone's going, well, we've got our brake bias on this and we're on ABS. And he went, the car's got ABS? And sure enough, he turns it on, and now we see the pace he actually has, and more to the point, how easy it is to replicate a more consistent fast lap is probably the biggest gain that he's noticed. His overall race time has probably come down considerably over his outright lap time. So, yeah, very impressive to see, and Andy's one to watch, definitely.
Yeah, you should have turned up to those coaching sessions. He probably would have realised all that a little bit sooner, shouldn't he? Anyway, you can see all the way down there as well to 18th place Stuart Vickers, who, as we said, isn't here this evening, unfortunately. Right, we can look forward to next week. We're at Red Bull Ring, so we are now bang on halfway through the season. Hockenheim Ring is the next up on our European tour, with another couple of sprint races up our sleeve. It should be me and Andy McEwan in the commentary box for that one, but if it's you and me, Dave, I've thoroughly enjoyed this evening. Thank you very much for it. It's been a pleasure. Fantastic. Keep in mind as well, before we very quickly go, we're going to show you another graphic for the MX-5 champ. Oh, no, there we go. Actually, I forgot about... No, we're going to talk about the MX-5 championship. We're going to very quickly talk about the MX-5 championship. I put my foot down. There we go. So that is happening from the 7th of September all the way through to the 26th of August. Basically, everything you see on the screen now. It's effectively a very similar championship to what we're doing at the moment with touring cars, apart from the fact that it's got an MX-5 with a slightly slower engine, obviously, than the touring cars, but it will have the same sort of hybrid, slightly less, similar sort of thing. And there are a few more endurance races dotted in there as well, but one to be keeping an eye out on VRRC. Very quickly, other things that we talk about on VRRC. This normally takes me about 40 minutes to complete, but I'm going to try and run through it. What's going on? Well, on Assetto Corsa, you saw the championship we've been doing today. We also have fun races on a Saturday night. We have time attacks as well going on throughout the week. So if you want to get involved in anything Assetto Corsa, even if you're just a bit new to Assetto Corsa, it can be a bit of a scary thing to set up, especially with all the mods that you need to do. And there's a lot of training basically that you need to do as well. Then please do click into our Discord or go onto our website. We've got loads of stuff to help you out, and there'll be loads of people, including Dave, who will be helping. It will be very helpful in installing all the mods and things you need to do. In iRacing, we're planning some very special events and some fun races as well to try and get more of the iRacing community involved as well. And then there's Dirt Rally 2.0, Dave's little baby that he likes to keep running with monthly stages as well. Just try not to beat Dave's time, because he's a bit, when we say alien, he's a complete freak terrestrial. It's ridiculous how quick he is on that one. But if you want to give it a go, then by all means, jump into our Discord. So head over to Dirt Rally 2.0 and give a crack on the monthly stages. Right, that is about all we've got time for here this evening. No, it isn't, apparently, because we've got one last graphic. My apologies. Driver Coaching Sim Racing, Driver Performance Centre. A fantastic opportunity at Silverstone to not only perfect your craft as a racing driver in total, not just a sim racer, a racing driver in total. So if you're a real life driver, you might want to jump down, get some real life tuition at Motors 1 based in Silverstone, units 45 and 46. Or if you, we host special events there, we'll host watch-alongs, we'll host sort of big group events with VRRC where all the members are involved as well, and they can jump down, and all those simulators are hooked up to a LAN system, so you can race each other and get a good community feel as well. Because the sim racing, at the end of the day, it can be, even though you have fantastic friends and you make great communities out of it, you sometimes need to get together as human beings and actually see each other and have a drink, don't you? So, brilliant. Fantastic. I think that is the last graphic. Thank you very much for watching. There we go. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Dave, thank you very much for jumping in with us as well. Hopefully, we'll have Andy back with us, but good luck to him in Spa if he's watching. And I'm sure he'll have an absolutely great time. Probably not as good as we've had, Dave. Any finishing thoughts for you?
No, I mean, as I said, I can't quite grasp how many cars were battling for position that late on the race. I feel like it's a fantastic formula, and it's really proven to me that I don't think this championship is going to be decided until the last round, which is absolutely fantastic for us. So I cannot wait for that. It's been a pleasure, Jack, and yeah, look forward to having Andy back in the comms box, but I'm always here if I need to drop in, essentially.
Hockenheim Ring up next. You can find it here on VRRC YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching, commenting, liking and sharing, or silently sitting there and judging whilst watching. You've all been a part of this great evening. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Woo!